We'll call to order the July 10th meeting of the Montgomery County Planning Commission. Mr. Linkus, you could determine a quorum.
Yes, sir. Mr. Kroll. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Sharp Robinson. Here. Ms. Simpkins. Mr. Waltz.
Here.
Mr. Workman.
Here.
Mr. Linkus here. Vice Chair Foster.
Here.
Chair Rice.
Here.
We have a quorum.
We have a full commission. First time in a while. And you have the agenda in front of you there. If there's any
Move
corrections,
approval. Second.
we have a motion and a second for approval of the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against likewise. And then we have the consent agenda that consists of the April 10th minutes and the July 12th minutes.
June 12th. June 12th.
June 12th, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed likewise. And then we're going into public hearing. So our first public hearing for this evening is a request by DW LLC. Agent is Michael Gay to rezone 49.17 acres from agriculture A1 to rural residential to allow for the development of a 14-lot single-family residential subdivision. And a request by the same applicant to allow the construction of private streets to service the proposed 14-lot single-family subdivision. Mr. Sanders.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. As Chair Rice stated, this is a request for a rezoning. Just to orient you, your vicinity maps. On the left, you can see this is just outside the town limits of the town of Christiansburg off Brammer Lane. The image on the right there gives you a little bit more of a zoom in. You can see this is at the 118C interchange there off of Roanoke Street. Here's your aerial map with the property denoted with the yellow border. Again, you will be familiar with this property. You did have a request for a special use permit for an inert debris site several months ago. And then your tax map and your zoning map is on the right there. You can see that the area is currently zoned A1 agricultural. The light blue there, that is the RM1 multifamily residential zoning that was approved there off Houchins Road for the development of the 108 residential units. The orange on, the yellow on the page that you see there, that is the that is Walnut Creek subdivision. We have a lot of walnuts here in the county. So again, just to summarize, the request is a rezoning for 49.17 acres from A1 to RR with proffered conditions. The applicant seeks to develop a 14-lot single-family subdivision and construct a private street network to serve the development. When you get to the point this evening that you're making your recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, you'll be doing that as two separate votes, one to make a recommendation on the rezoning, one on the private streets request. The property had been removed from the Agriculture and Forestal District number 7 last year in June. And then, as I mentioned, that special use permit for the inert debris site was approved in November of last year by the board. That special use permit allowed an additional 10,000 cubic yards of fill on the site, which brought the total allowable fill on the site to 25,000 cubic yards by the SUP. As you'll remember, the applicant originally proposed a recreational vehicle park to be constructed on the property. However, those plans were altered due to market conditions. The proposed subdivision development is proposed as a gated community with lot sizes ranging from 1.59 acres to 3.05 acres. The applicant does intend to retain large open space and forested areas on the site. They're trying to disturb as little as possible to keep that rural nature of the site. Those open space areas that were created would contain the stormwater maintenance facilities as well as recreational trails. Here's your concept plan on the left. Again, you can see the 14-lot subdivision. I'll point out to you some of the areas of interest. You can see, again, the large open space that will be preserved on the property for that trail network. The stormwater management area is here. And then you can see there are several lots that are going to front Brammer Lane. This is the guardhouse that is proposed and has been constructed with the gates. You can see this dark hashed area here. That's an access easement to provide access to those 3 lots that front Brammer Lane. Again, those will be accessed from within the development and not off of Brammer. And then you can see the private street network here, the main street that goes through the guardhouse and terminates in a cul-de-sac. And then there's another cul-de-sac here servicing these lots. Again, large lots, the median lot size that is required for private streets is 3 acres. So you do have the smaller lots here along Brammer and the larger lots located within the rear of the subdivision. And you can also see with the topo lines here, there is a lot of grade on the site. They're going to maintain as much of that as possible. Again, that rustic terrain that they want for the recreational areas. We got to fly the drone, which we always love to do to give you a better idea of the property. On the left there, you can see the main entrance road as it comes off of Brammer Lane. You can see there's already been some grading there for that first cul-de-sac. And then as you see, that road continues back, so you get an idea of where that private street network will be constructed on the property. You can also see just how heavily forested the property is. Again, they're going to try to maintain as much of that tree cover as possible for that rustic nature of the site. Another view of that grading that was done. Again, this was done to facilitate that debris fill site and allow the trucks to go in and be able to turn around. And there's another view looking back toward Interstate 81. Again, you can just see the topography and the tree cover. This is that main entrance road. This is standing at the gatehouse, looking into the property and then looking on that access road as it goes in. And then this is the current condition of Brammer Lane at the site entrance. This is looking toward Roanoke on the left and then looking back toward the Christiansburg town limits on the right. You can see that the road is currently gravel and unimproved. This is a frontage road for Interstate 81 that was constructed to provide parcel access to those parcels that would have otherwise been landlocked with the construction of 81. It is maintained by VDOT in this condition. At this time, VDOT has no plans to change the way it maintains the road. If the developer does choose to pave a portion of the road, they will have to acquire a VDOT land use permit in order to do so. The current ADT on Brammer Lane is 86 trips per day, but the portion where this subdivision is being developed is much less than that. The applicant has proposed that private street network that must be approved by the Board of Supervisors. And while those streets will be privately maintained, they must meet other VDOT standards. So there's a minimum grade of 18%, or excuse me, a maximum grade of 18%, that should have been changed. And then 18 feet minimum width of pavement there on the property. They must also, again, have the median lot size of 3 acres to be considered for private streets, have 150 feet of road frontage, and a maintenance agreement would have to be put in place at the time of the subdivision platting. As you'll remember, when we discussed the Houchins rezoning, there were some concerns expressed by the residents in Walnut Creek as well as the town of Christiansburg about the intersection of Houchins Road and Roanoke Street. There is only one way out of the subdivision currently through Houchins Road. Brammer Lane also has one way out to Roanoke Street through Houchins. So the Houchins intersection, there's an ADT on that road of 860 vehicles. As a reminder, 108 residential units were approved by the board in February of this year. However, that number did not generate the need for a traffic impact analysis by VDOT or the county. The intersection of Houchins and Roanoke Street is completely located within the jurisdiction of the town of Christiansburg, and thus any improvements to that intersection must be approved by the town. It is currently a stop sign controlled intersection. Left turn movements there are currently functioning at a level of service F. Right turn movements are functioning at a level of service B. Due to the small number of lots that are being proposed in the subdivision, we don't anticipate any change to the level of service of the intersection as a result. The town did submit a letter reiterating that concern about the traffic being added to the intersection, and that was included in your packets. Upon their review, VDOT took no additional exception to the proposal. Emergency services, the applicant has ensured that all turning radii in the cul-de-sacs will be able to accommodate emergency vehicles. A turnaround is going to be created past the gated area of the development to allow vehicles to be able to turn. That's going to be for things like school buses, emergency service vehicles, and regular vehicular traffic. Fire hydrants will be included in the development per the subdivision ordinance, and a Knox box will be provided at the gate to allow access to first responders. Public water is going to be provided by the town of Christiansburg. They did receive an availability letter that the level of service that they're going to need is available there. And then the property will be served by private septic facilities that would be installed and approved by the Virginia Department of Health. The property does not lie within a FEMA-designated flood zone. They would have to do a full erosion and sediment control and stormwater maintenance evaluation as part of site plan and plat review. And again, as I mentioned several times, the plan is to maintain much of the forested area on the property. Students would attend the Christiansburg strand of Montgomery County Public Schools. We didn't receive any comments from school staff. However, previously provided capacity numbers show us that the strand does have the capacity to take those additional students. In looking at the comprehensive plan, this is designated as a rural area. There are your policy goals related to rural areas. I want to note that new low-density residential development is permitted while not encouraged in the rural areas. And then there's some notes there about how we would like to restrict development that's done in the rural areas. Again, not exceeding 0.75 dwelling units per acre. They should be clustered or exhibit other conservation design principles and preserve on-site features where possible. So in our analysis, it does provide, as proposed, additional housing near the town limits of the town of Christiansburg. It is of a limited scale and relies on those private septic systems, which again lends to that more rural nature of the site. While residential development is not encouraged in rural areas, its proximity to the town of Christiansburg and our urban expansion area gives us some flexibility in the evaluation of the application. The development of those private streets will adhere to those VDOT standards and will ensure adequate access for emergency service vehicles. Any construction that is to be completed on the fill area must be done after adequate compaction testing has been approved. And any improvements to Brammer Lane, if done, would benefit all the property owners that utilize the frontage road. So as a result, staff does recommend approval to rezone the parcel from A1 agricultural to RR rural residential with the following proffered conditions. The project will be constructed in general conformance with the concept plan dated June 1st, 2024. There will be a maximum of 14 single-family lots and accessory uses. Fire protection will be provided through the extension of existing public water lines as capacity allows. Approximately 28% of the site will be commonly owned open space for protection of environmental resources, for stormwater management, and for passive recreation. Lots 12, 13, and 14 may front the existing Brammer Lane, but vehicular access will be required from within the proposed internal street network. A new subdivision entrance sign may be located at the new street entrance location along Brammer Lane. In your staff analysis, there was a small error. We had noted that the parcel actually was accessed through the town of Christiansburg. In reviewing the plat, all of the parcel is actually maintained entirely within the county, so there's no impact on the town of Christiansburg. We notified adjoining property owners in accordance with both state and county code. A public hearing sign was placed on the property and ads were run in the News Messenger. We did receive that one letter from the town of Christiansburg that was included in your packet, but we've received no other comments from citizens about this application. However, we may have people here this evening to speak with you. So at this time, I'll take any questions that you have. The agent for the property, Mr. Michael Gay, is here to answer any questions that you might have of him.
Any questions for staff?
Michael, did you want to add anything? Okay, come on up.
Good evening, everybody. Appreciate your time tonight. I don't want to take too much of it. I'm mostly here to answer any questions that you might have. I do want to expand on a couple of items that Justin mentioned. One is we are going to be paving. Brammer Lane is currently paved up past the entrance of Sawyer bus lines, bus service. So we're going to pick up the pavement and pave 20 feet wide from there to our entrance and provide a turnaround at that point. The rest of it is going to stay gravel. As the VDOT rep says, it's a VDOT-owned, VDOT unmaintained road. And so we'll be doing some improvements there. Fire hydrants, there are a couple of fire hydrants along Brammer Lane now on the town of Christiansburg line. Since we are making this a gated community, those will not be readily accessible for fire protection in our project. So we will be placing additional fire hydrants inside the gate so that there's easier access. On environmental aspect, I just want to mention that on this property, there is about 2,500 feet of stream, live stream, and there are identified wetlands along the northern property line. All of that will be in the dedicated common area and protected through stormwater management agreement, conserved open space. Any questions? Be glad to answer them.
Yes, please.
Mr. Gay?
Yes, sir.
Is there a minimum square footage for these residences? And is there an architectural theme that
No,
you want to propose?
that has not been identified at this time, no.
Commission have any other questions for the applicant?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open up the public hearing for this rezoning, or this request, and anyone wishing to speak during the public hearing has 3 minutes for comments. And I do have one that has signed up, specifically a Stephen Broomfield. If he would like to come forward, state your name and address, please.
My name's Stephen Brumfield. I own the property to the north of this proposed rezoning. And I'm not here against the rezoning. I have no problem with it. Sounds good. I thought the rec thing they was going to do was a good project, but just numbers didn't come out. And I'm not here about roads because, as it says in there, it's not feasible. The wetlands, I don't understand. My grandfather moved there in the early 1900s when Dr. Brammer still owned the property, and the property runs from their northern border all the way over to Roanoke Road and west to Houchins Road, and Interstate 81 come through and cut the property in half. And I have been on the property when Mr. Grove was living and done some hunting in there, and I tell you, it is rough. And when you're a teenager and you remember it being rough, it's rough. But my concern is they got a buffer between me and them. We've been running cattle in there ever since my grandfather's been there. And right now, there may not be any in there, and there may be some in there, because what we do is we lose that a buffer zone between neighbors to keep the bulls from tearing the fences apart. And so what we got is, and the neighbor right now, he may have cattle on it. He's got longhorns and stuff. And I mean, they're racks 5 feet wide. And the concern is a safety issue because they're talking about putting trails and stuff down through there. And that place being rough to me is another thing that makes it very inviting, because there's bluffs in there that's probably 20 feet tall. There's a lot of wildflowers. There's ginseng and all kinds of plants and stuff in there, which, I mean, it's something you don't see everywhere. And the concern is, I've talked to Mr. Woods before in probably early April or May about the fence. It's in very poor repair. And my side of the fence is completely clear. The only thing that's coming down is some of the trees are dying and falling. And right now there is one tree across the fence. I've been keeping the fence back. Mr. Grubb probably helped put the post in there. It was in that fence before. And we've tied it up and everything else. But it's not safe to have the public against one side and the cattle on the other side. And if you've ever farmed or anything, it's not the bull that's as much of the problem as it is cows with calves. And you talk about them longhorns, you talk about some pretty calves because they're all different colors and everything else. it's very likely somebody may want to walk up to the fence and need a good fence. Right now, like I say, it's tied up and everything. And what I'd like to see, I'm from the old school of farmers. If you take something out of agriculture, you fence it. I'm not putting people in there. They're the ones putting people in there. I like to see them, I got 700 feet. I like to see a perforated in there that they'll fence that 700 feet. And I'm not talking about a fence like chain link or anything like that. The railroad just finished a 5,000 foot section of fence between me and the railroad just in December. That's the type of fence that we want to put back up. It's only American wire, woven wire, post 12-foot centers, and that's all it is with wooden braces. Right now, me and Mr. Rakes, the adjoining property owner, are doing 1,250 feet of fencing. And my side is cleared. He took care of all the clearing. We're sharing the cost on the fence. So I worked with the railroad on getting a fence, and I'll just be straight up, not trying to cover anything up. It cost around $10 a foot to clear a fence line and put it back in. So you're talking at 700 feet, $7,000. But the thing of it is, like Mr. Rakes, because he had all the timber, he done all the clearing. And we shared the price on the fence, and the fence was $6.25 per foot, or $6.50 per foot. So I'm looking at it as the subdivision is responsible for clearing because they have all the debris. The only debris is what's falling from their side on my side that I've got. They're responsible for clearing the debris and half of the fence. That's a given. So it's only $2,300 to make it safe and more secure for everybody else. The only difference between, it'll be the same fence as the railroad, same fence as Mr. Rakes. The only difference between the railroad fence is the type of post. The railroad uses metal posts. The railroad has no people on their side. They have no animals on their side. So that's all I'm asking for is a standard fence put in the proffers to do it, and $2,300. The project like this, and I hope it goes through, and I think it's good. I think it'd be good for the community. There's nothing like that down in there. It's close to 81. I'm for the rezoning. That's the only proffer, only thing I got. That's one proffer I'd like, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this issue? Public hearing? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And open it up to the commission.
I have a question. Is there going to be an HOA or an association for this subdivision? I'm calling it a subdivision. And would they maintain something like that on the roads?
So there would have to be an entity that would maintain those open space and common space areas, and that was a discussion that we had early on with the applicant and with Mr. Gay. Originally, the stormwater management areas and the recreational trails were going to be part of the larger lots. And the idea there was, again, to have as large of a lot as possible. However, we discussed with them the difficulty of being able to maintain those shared features if they're on individually owned lots. So by the nature of having the open space area, there would have to be a homeowners association or some other entity that would maintain that. However, that would obviously, the restrictions that would be on the individual lots would be up to the homeowners association.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I know Virginia has some rules or laws for fence in versus fence out for owners that have livestock on their property, and I can't remember whose responsibility it is to keep the animals out of their property by having the fence, or whoever owns the property are supposed to keep the fence maintained to keep the animals in their property. So I can't remember that right now, but I think that Mr. Brumfield's comments are very important, and I'd like to find out how those are going to be addressed.
So I'm going to refer to the agent on whether a proffer would be willing to be offered. Again, with this being a rezoning and not a special use permit, we cannot require that as part of our approval of the application. In terms of if someone wanted to have backyard chickens or some other animals on the lots themselves, we have restrictions in RR on the number of animals that could be even on the site. It would probably be limited to something like backyard chickens. I don't believe we allow any other livestock or animals in RR. I'm going to defer to Bree and Jude on that, on what we would allow on site. But if there were a fence for the development, that would have to be maintained by the developer and the homeowners association, because again, it would be one of those commonly shared features.
So currently in the plans, it doesn't have a fence?
So there's fencing along the side and the front of the property. I will have Mr. Gay come back forward and talk about the rear fencing, if there is anything proposed. And again, if the applicant would be willing to even proffer that, we would have to leave that to them in their discretion.
Okay, thank you.
So we would allow small-scale agriculture on rural residential lots unless the covenants of the subdivision restricted that. My understanding is, and the advice we give people when they call us, our zoning ordinance does not address fencing unless it is in a type 3 or type 4 buffer area, which is when you have a much more intensive use against a lower use. That would not be this situation. This is considered low-density residential, and so abutting up against another ag use, which is also considered low-density residential, it would not require a fence around it. As far as the state code requirements, I'm not sure what those are. They are not enforceable by my department. So generally, if someone calls our office and they say, hey, we're putting up a fence, where can we put it? Our comment is, you'll need to check legal requirements through the State Code of Virginia. However, our advice to you is that you not put it on the property line so you can maintain it from your property on both sides. But we do not have any fencing requirements in our zoning ordinance for that type of
My
thing.
concern is the property owner that's already there with their cattle or what's there, they have fencing, but it's to keep them on their land. But if someone develops something that is not in favor of that, and who is responsible for making sure they don't cross over? Is it whose ownership of that fence? So I know
That's a
there's some-
civil matter.
So we've,
Steve
so-
may know more about that.
Pam, if I may, we've been there twice now for site visits. I haven't seen any cows roaming around. What keeps the cows in their fence now? Is it the topography? I mean, like I
I'm
say,
going to ask Mr. Gay to step forward and address that question.
The subject property as it adjoins Mr. Brumfield's, there is a fence there now. Not in the best condition, but it's there. We've identified it. I believe discussions, Ernie's come and talked to you about, you and Ernie have talked
I
about,
talked to Ernie a little bit about it, and the fence laws in Virginia changed in 2005 because of subdivision. And what it is, it's a boundary fence. Montgomery County is a fence-out county. What it is, Montgomery County is fence-out county. Considered now as boundary fences. And once a boundary fence is established, both parties are equally responsible for it as long as it's within 3 feet of the boundary, considered a boundary fence. That's where you're equally responsible. But you stick it up, it's in the Code of Virginia, there's no exception, because it used to be that I could say I want to build a fence, and you say, I don't have anything over, I'm not paying for any fence. So I
Okay,
can't build a
okay, I'm sorry. We've
Okay,
closed the public hearing, so, I'm trying to decide if this is, an issue that we should be discussing from the land use side. Like I say, when we were there, we didn't see cows roaming, so something is keeping the cows there now. I'm assuming that would continue in the future.
the topography is rough, as was stated earlier. There's a stream on portions of it. It's rough. There's fencing there also. The owner of the property, DWLC, is very much on board with certainly sharing the cost, that was my understanding.
Mr. Gay, please address
Oh,
that.
it was my understanding that, I don't want to say something that would conflict with what Mr. Broomfield has heard. But it was my understanding that Ernie, Mr. Broomfield would share costs to replace the fence. Ernie has equipment, clearing equipment, all that. No problem. If that needs to be proffered, DWLC would be fine with that. I would hate to see it delay the approval. If we can keep on our schedule and add the proffer at the next,
What is the distance from, we've got like, it looks like 4 lots that back up to this proposed walking trail. What's the distance between that walking trail and the actual boundary or property line? Are we talking 50 feet, 75
we're talking
feet?
about 200, 250 feet.
250.
And you cannot get there you can't walk down that bank. As far as trails, when we're talking about recreational trails, these are existing logging roads that it runs right along the back property line of those larger lots. So we're not going down in there any further with disturbance. But again, and my client has talked with the property owner to the east, same discussion. Would be glad to share costs to replace these fences.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you much.
Mr. Chairman, procedurally, if there is concern about that rear fencing, if the commission is okay with every other aspect of the application, you could proceed forward with a vote this evening and then direct staff to continue to work with the applicant to develop that proffer if they so choose. And we'll include in our staff report to the Board of Supervisors that concern was raised. And then we would have the time between this meeting and the Board of Supervisors meeting to address that concern if you so chose.
I actually think it's a civil matter between two property owners. I don't think that concerns us. We're talking about land use and if there's a fence issue, I don't think that's for us to get in the middle of or try to gate between us. I think that's somebody else's purview, not ours. How does the commission feel? Are we?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I get it, that it's not ours. They are willing to proffer it in. It's a nice thing that they're doing, and I think it's a good thing for safe, and that's not our job, I know. The safety of people there is not our job necessarily. But if they're willing to do that, and we're not stopping the process, what would be the negative of adding the proffer? I don't see one. And this is discussion, so that's why I'm asking. But they're willing, they've said it, we've heard that it won't stop it, and it would be a good thing.
I'll just add that I agree, especially since we had someone come in and express a concern about it, a citizen, a property owner, wanted it brought to our attention. So I think it's a good idea to have it included since they're willing. Okay. And personally, I know I'm married to a farmer who has cattle, and we're personally dealing with this issue with a residential area that has a homeowners association that says it's not their responsibility. And so I live it nightly when the calls come in that cows are out, not when people are walking around seeing it. So they come in, they cross for different reasons. Curiosity, hunger, just the opportunity. So that's my thoughts on it.
It seemed to me that the issue wasn't keeping cattle coming onto this property, it's from keeping people going onto the other property. But it seemed like it's outside of our purview. It's like we're trying to regulate something that's not within our, but I'll be glad to listen to any motion that's put forth.
All right, I make a motion that we include the proffer, the project moves forward, and the staff would update the Board of Supervisors.
So no, we can't require proffers, and we don't have any proffer at this
Correct.
point.
So we cannot make a motion that would require that proffer. We could have a motion that
We can table it
you.
till next week?
So you can defer it. You can make a recommendation for approval with the proffers you have received and with your concern regarding fencing noted. Or you, of course, could make the recommendation that the board not approve the request as submitted.
So do we have a list of proffers now? What are our proffers that are in place?
The proffers that have been submitted by the applicant are: the project will be constructed in general conformance with the concept plan dated June 1st, 2024, a maximum of 14 single-family lots and accessory uses. Fire protection will be provided through the extension of public water lines as capacity allows. Approximately 28% of the site will be commonly owned open space for protection of environmental resources, stormwater management, and for passive recreation such as walking trails. Lots 12, 13, and 14 may front on existing Bremer Lane, but vehicular access will be required from the proposed internal streets. And a new subdivision entrance sign may be located at the new street entrance located along Bremer. Those are the proffers that have been submitted by the applicant to date.
So the applicants made those proffers. We can't require any additional proffers.
Correct. We can accept any proffers up until 3 days before the Board of Supervisors' public hearing. So you can either recommend that the request be deferred until staff can work with the applicant regarding fencing issues. You can recommend approval with the proffer submitted by the applicant and your concerns noted to the Board of Supervisors regarding the joint fencing on the property. Got it. We'll also note this is just the motion for the rezoning. We will need a separate motion for the private streets.
Correct, two separate motions. Correct. So this motion is for approval with,
the proffered conditions as submitted by the applicant and with the concerns noted regarding the joint fencing with the adjoining property
just
owners.
concerns noted.
Correct.
And we've got a second.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Linkus?
Okay, Mr. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Sharp Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Simpkins,
Yes.
Mr. Waltz,
Yes.
Workman? Yes. Secretary, yes. Vice Chair Foster,
Yes.
Chair Rice,
Yes.
approved.
And then we're looking for a motion for the construction of private streets within the subdivision.
I'll make a motion.
So we have a motion and a second for the construction of private streets. And Mr. Linkus will have a roll call.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Sharp Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Simpkins, Mr. Waltz,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Linkus, yes. Vice Chair Foster,
Yes.
Chair Rice.
Yes. Okay, that concludes that public hearing, and then the second public hearing for tonight is a request by Jonathan L. Yates for Arcola Towers for a special use permit to allow a 197-foot monopole wireless telecommunications tower freestanding. And is Ms. Wright going to address that?
So we do have a request for a special use permit for a telecommunications tower. As you can see, the property is located in the western portion of the county, off of Childress Road. You can see the zoom in here for the subject property. Your aerial map, excuse me, your aerial map of the property, again, you can see here the property's location. This is Sassafras Road, and you can see the property here. Their zoning map, you can see mostly agricultural in this area. You do have some residential property located here as well. So the request is to erect a 197-foot monopole freestanding tower with a 2 feet lightning rod. There are 3 co-location opportunities that are provided on the property. The leased space would be an area of 75 feet by 75 feet. And the total acreage on the lot is 50.4383 acres, zoned A1 agricultural. So here's your concept plan for the property. You can see here, this is the existing access road for the farm. It goes back to that 75 by 75 area where the monopole would be located. This is a detail of that pad area here. You can see the fenced area where the equipment would be maintained, as well as the monopole there, that existing access road that accesses the site. And then here is the diagram of the pole. You can see again that 2 foot lightning rod at the top, and then the monopole design with the fenced area. So looking at the impacts, again, the proposed site was 75 feet by 75 feet with a 7 feet chain link fence with barbed wire. There would be a 12-foot wide double access gate, and then that access road is 10 feet in width. Due to the fact that there would be limited maintenance coming to the site, there would be low impact in transportation and traffic concerns. The tower connects to that existing driveway on the same parcel that serves the dwelling that's located on the farm. VDOT did their review and had no concerns regarding safety or maintenance. But any future changes would require an additional review by VDOT. In terms of infrastructure, the Public Service Authority does not provide any service in that location, and water and sewer are not required. Looking at the environmental impacts, the site is not located in a FEMA-designated flood zone. We will evaluate other erosion and sediment control and stormwater management impacts at site plan review. There's no land disturbance permitting that's required because it's under that 10,000 square feet of land disturbance. And then that would minimize also the sediment and pollutants that are expected, and those would be monitored. There's no production of off-site noise in association with the tower. The tower will have a steel finish that is non-reflective and does not produce glare, and they are not proposing any additional lighting. It is not required to have air navigation lighting by FAA requirements and would deploy FCC required site identification and emergency signage on the fenced area. Here are your site images. You can see again that existing gravel access road. And then this is the intersection there of that gravel road with Childress Road, looking to the left there, back toward Christiansburg, back toward Tyler Road, and then right toward Graysontown Road. You can see the existing cattle gate that's there to access back into the property. This is that gravel driveway that splits off and accesses the residence and then goes further back into the property. And then you can see a closer view of the tower site with the existing vegetation that's on the site. The applicant did conduct balloon testing, and those photos were put in your packet. We have pulled out several different views for you just to show you that this evening. These are your map view of the different views that were taken. So this is location 1 on your map. This is the view of the property facing from Childress Road. You can see the balloon is here, just behind that silo. In this image, this is location 16. This is near the intersection of Childress Road and Indian Valley Road facing northeast. We put an arrow here for you. That is the balloon test location there behind the tree line. Image 19, this is near the end of Old Stage Road facing southeast. Your balloon test is here. Location 20, this is the view when continuing west along Childress Road to Graysontown Road facing east towards the tower site. You can again see you can't really even see the balloon in this image. Image 21, this is facing northeast. Again, not really seeing anything there. Location 22, this is the view from Sassafras Road facing northeast. You can see this is the location of the tower here. So in the staff's analysis, the 2025 comprehensive plan designates this site as rural. The comprehensive plan does encourage co-location on existing towers or other structures as follows. Utilities Chapter 2.2.1 supports the co-location of antennas on existing towers and structures. Newly constructed towers should be located to provide the least negative impact on citizens of the jurisdiction, and new towers should be evaluated for their potential effects on surrounding jurisdictions, as well as the jurisdiction where the tower is constructed. The application materials were sent to Pulaski County for review, and no response was received. There are some other goals in the comprehensive plan that relates to telecommunication towers, providing orderly extension of electrical and telecommunication services, and then promoting law enforcement and emergency services. That talks about co-location of potential emergency services networks on the tower as well. The 197-foot monopole tower with the lightning rod would improve voice and data communications for our citizens. The tower will be used by Verizon and could potentially be available for other cellular providers, providing co-location opportunities. The proposed site will be required to meet county landscaping code, which requires screening from adjacent property owners. An SUP for a separate tower located approximately 5 miles from this site was approved in December of 2020. Permits have been issued, and the most recent inspection was on May 15th of this year for the equipment and generator pad. Although previous applications have included existing and anticipated coverage maps, the Code of Virginia prohibits us from requiring those maps and studies to be included in application packets, and there's that section of code there for you. Section 1048 of Montgomery County Code also addresses freestanding telecommunication towers. Again, the towers shall be maintained with a galvanized steel finish or be painted a neutral color. Dish antennas shall be a neutral non-reflective color. No logos or advertising of any kind shall be permitted on the towers, antennas, or any accompanying structures or facilities. A written agreement for future co-locations shall be provided by the tower owner and maintained to the satisfaction of our zoning administrator. A written agreement assuring prompt removal of the tower upon abandonment at the responsibility and cost of the tower owner and landowner, or landowner, shall be provided and maintained to the satisfaction of the zoning administrator. And all towers shall comply with FAA requirements, including those related to the Virginia Tech Airport. So because they meet those conditions that were outlined in code, staff does recommend approval of the tower with the following conditions. The tower shall not exceed a height of 197 feet, exclusive of the proposed 2-foot lightning rod, with a ground elevation of 2,066.8 feet above mean sea level. The tower shall not have lighting unless required by the FAA. Site development shall be in general conformance with the concept plan submitted in the SUP application entitled Sassafras 3936 Childress Road, Christiansburg, Virginia 24070. And the tower shall be of a monopole design, and dishes shall not be installed above the lowest co-location elevation. All wiring and cables shall be located inside the monopole structure. Staff did notify adjacent property owners in accordance with Montgomery County and state code. A public hearing sign was placed on the property and legal ads run in the News Messenger. We have not been contacted by any citizens related to this application, but we may receive comments this evening as part of the public hearing. And with that, I will take any questions. Kim is back with us. She's been working with the applicant, and she can answer anything that I don't have for you.
Mr. Sanders,
Yes, sir.
remind me of the ability of Montgomery County Emergency Services use of these towers if needed for our local communications, governmental communication.
My understanding is that's done through the co-location agreement with the tower owner. They would be treated at the same level as any other co-location request.
And Justin, tell us.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's required to be either galvanized steel, which does not produce that glare, or a neutral color. I will make a note because we will need to look at that tower because it should have been the galvanized as well. And that should have been submitted on the site plan. So since it appears they have not closed out their building permit yet, we can still take a look at that and see if we can determine what
Yeah,
that is.
the galvanized or the neutral color has been a standard condition that we've placed on telecommunication towers since we updated the ordinance 10, 15 years ago. Ms. Simpkins, you're muted, by the way. I don't know if you knew that.
Now, thank you. I'm loud. I thought you could hear me anyway. But so I would just request to take a look and see if it is galvanized steel and it's still causing that issue for that citizen, that resident in the area, that we consider that and as maybe being something that needs to be discussed and definitely maybe being a neutral color. Because he did bring up there are other towers, not in our county, that have had other masking things that happen to them, such as green shrub, making it look like a big tall pine tree or something. But I'm just bringing that up because I had someone talk to me about this specifically.
And I will say, we have found in our research and in crafting the conditions that we do, the ones that are camouflaged to look like trees actually stand out more than the galvanized or the neutral color, so we steer away from those.
Right, we talked about that. He's actually a VDOT employee, so he's all over the state looking at different things. So he was the one that was sharing that concern because this one is actually near his family farm in Reiner.
Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention. We'll definitely take a look at that.
Mm-hmm.
So one more question. So the monopole design, when the actual antennas are on it, are they?
I'm going to go back to the drawing of the antenna or the pole itself.
Is it going to look like a big Christmas tree or hat, or is it?
So you can see here, the antennas are located here at the top of the tower. Again, the condition was if any dishes were to be placed, they would be no higher than that lowest co-location opportunity. We do have the developer and the property owner with us this evening. They can answer any additional questions about the design for you.
And one comment on the balloon test, it appears to me that it's probably not as visible because of the foliage on the green leaves on the tree. So in the winter, when the leaves aren't on the tree, it would be a lot more visible. And so there were a couple of shots you had there that maybe it wasn't visible because of it's summertime. I don't know if that's a factor in doing the balloon test. I know you can't do them in year-round knowing that this is going to happen, but I thought that might be something that you might make a note of in there, that it could change that down the road. Those may not be the same when they're done at a different time of the year.
Any further questions for staff? Thank you, Justin.
And as I said, we do have the applicant's agent with us this evening. I'll invite you forward. Let's scroll forward, excuse me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Jonathan Yates. With me is Ryan Foltz of Arcola Towers and the Duncans, our property owners. First and foremost, I'm here to answer any questions and give a brief overview, very brief because an incredible overview was just given by staff. But I would be remiss if I did not thank Ms. Kim Wright and Jude. During this process, I asked 101 stupid questions. They never laughed at me. What I want to say, they were incredible to work with. They really make the county proud, and they helped me through the whole process. The facility tonight, first, sir, to the question about the emergency equipment, yes, Arcola makes all our towers available for county emergency. And to answer your question, Ms. Simpkins, I'm sorry, I need my glasses.
Simpkins.
Simpkins. You do go with the galvanized finish. I don't know what's going on that tower on your friend's property, but we found with the galvanized, it comes out shiny at the start. Within 6 months to a year, galvanized, it dulls up, non-reflective and not glare. Maybe they'd used a different thing, but we go with the galvanized pursuant to the county ordinance. The facility tonight is designed for Verizon Wireless and at least 3 other broadband carriers if they want to bring coverage to that area. spending the afternoon at Reggie's, they need coverage in that area. The property, as towers go, just lays out beautifully. Reggie, back in '88, he bought this 50-acre piece from the Teal family. Reggie also bought behind him another 44 acres. Reggie was a dairy farmer for many years. He still lives on the property. Now he has Todd Rosenbaum running the dairy operation. Reggie, just not connected, but just away, has another 51 acres where Todd grows corn and alfalfa. So for us, we were able to achieve incredible setbacks, 673 feet from Childress Road. We're able to use Reggie's existing road to get back in there. We got some good tree cover around it. So it laid out, it really worked well because it's where Verizon wanted to be, where they needed to bring what they needed to bring out there, but also the property just laid out beautifully. A lot of times we approach a property owner and they'll say, okay, you can do it, but you can do it in the front of my property, or you got to be far that corner. Reggie let us go 673 feet off the road, 115 feet to his 44-acre property, and then one side I'm 1,370 feet away and 1058 on the other. So he was very gracious to us in where he allowed us on his property. What does this mean if we get to do it? It means wireless voice. It means wireless broadband. But most importantly, in a rural area, it means effective access to 911 first responders. I cannot stress that enough, and in fact, they brought it up from the 2025 plan in SFY 10, the importance of your consolidated dispatch. Someone gets in trouble, they're going out Childress, Sassafras Road, they're in trouble, they're in their car, versus having to run 670-some-odd feet up to Reggie's house to knock on the door to use his landline. They can pull their phone out. And that's very important because they can talk to the dispatcher throughout. They can be located exactly where they are, and a little triage can go and the right responders can get to them. So that's important. I'm here for any all questions. People joke when I say my name, it sometimes takes me 6 minutes. I'm from the South. I apologize, but don't mean to be long-winded. But all in all, we feel strongly and agree with staff that we met the requirements of the ordinance. But more importantly, we feel that we more than met them thanks to Mr. Duncan allowing us that incredible placement on his property. So if there are any questions, I'm here of a technical nature. Oh, and get on to another thing. Ryan, if we are allowed to do this, takes him about 60 days construction period. After that, Verizon comes out less than once a month. Most of the equipment is monitored remotely, so we're not going to be creating any really additional traffic on Childress Road. And again, if we do get to do it, we will not produce any noise, odor, lights, vibration, fumes, or glare. So I'm here for any questions, as well as Mr. Foltz and the Duncans.
How far does the antenna extend from the actual monopole? Is it?
On this one,
Is it-
you know the
is it
RFDS.
5 feet? Is it 10 feet? Is it?
So are you talking about so my name is Ryan Foltz, thank you guys. Are you talking about the height, the width, the depth?
The width.
The width. So typically, the mounts are called collar mounts that go on a pole that Verizon goes on and the other carriers.
Right.
So typically, a face of that mount can be 10 to 12 feet. And typically, they put 3 to 4 antennas that are usually, the max heights are about 8 feet tall.
Okay.
Because when they go on our towers, they have a space of 10 feet by 12 feet on each face, and the height's 10 feet
Okay.
for us.
And is that part of the proffered plan? So it's not going to be 30 feet or 40 feet?
Yeah.
We're talking 10
We
feet.
we don't let them do that anyway on our towers, because the loading perspective to our tower would have to be a lot beefier.
Okay.
Couldn't support it.
Do we have any other questions? Please.
Yes, sir.
In looking at the rendering of the tower, am I correct, because it was pretty tiny for my eyeballs to see, that you could have up to 4 layers of co-location, or,
Yes, sir.
okay,
That's on our drawings on the SP3. What we're showing is Verizon on the top, and then the 3 co-locators below us. And what the county has requested that any dished antennas be below that level of the co-locators.
and Mr. Yates, don't apologize for being from the side.
Any other questions, concerns? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And again, if I can thank him and Jude. Thank you.
And so I'll open this up for public hearing. If there's someone in the audience who would like to come and speak to this matter, please come forward. And seeing none, we will close the public hearing and take it up with the commission. Any comments or concerns? Seemed like on the site visit, when we were going, it's located well off the Childress Road, so I don't think you'll be seeing the base. I don't think that's going to be distracting anyone, although you'll probably see the pole, but I don't think you'll have any problem with the base.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move approval of a special use permit for our 197-foot monopole wireless telecommunications tower at 3936 Childress Road.
Second.
With conditions.
With the conditions. Any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Lincoln?
Okay, Mr. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Sharp Robinson,
Yes.
Simpkins,
Yes.
Mr. Waltz. Yes. Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Linkus, yes. Vice Chair Foster,
Yes.
Chair Rice.
Yes.
Approved.
At this time, we'll open up for public address that the public can approach the commission about any item. I will mention that we have a work session next to talk about 2 items, but during the work session, we will not take public comments. So if you do have a public comment that you'd like to express, now would be the time to do that. Okay, so we will close the public address portion. And I'll entertain a motion to enter into work session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to enter into work session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed likewise. So we are now in work session. Whoever. And we have a request to revise the proffered conditions approved previously as part of the rezoning of 9.035 acres located at the intersection of Tyler Road and Meadow Creek Road from agriculture A1 to general business, originally approved by the Board of Supervisors on September the 14th. And Ms. Hopkins, are you going?
Yes,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
am. So this property is located right off of Interstate I-81, exit 109. This property was originally rezoned in 2009, and then in 2010, they submitted a revised master plan to the property to allow for some realignment of Meadow Creek Road and the potential acquisition of another piece of property. So this is our drone footage. As you can see, what you're seeing here on the lower part of the screen, that is Meadow Creek. And then Tyler Road, you can see the hospital in the background there. This is the portion of the property to the south on your screen. That is also part of the property. It is not part of what is proposed for development at this time, but it would be an additional phase, and it is included in this proffer amendment. So this is the proposed concept plan that they have submitted. Back in 2010, the proffer statement was for substantial construction, which means it has to very closely align with what was approved according to the concept plan. And there were multiple structures that were shown on this original concept plan. that consisted of a hotel, a gas convenience store with a drive-through restaurant, a separate standalone restaurant, some medical office buildings, just a variety of things. After Meadow Creek Road was realigned and there was some property was not obtained that had been planned for, it changed the lay of the property, but it also changed the parcel structures as well. And so once we started looking at this, we realized not only could they not do this development without coming back to you all, but it was unlikely they could do any type of development without coming back to you all in order to amend those proffers because of that substantial compliance. So part of the proffers they are amending, of course, is for general conformance with this master plan. They are not changing any of the uses that would be allowed. They are still excluding several of the uses from the general business zoning district and maintaining plans for the uses they had previously looked at. So that is not changing. They have removed a few of the proffered conditions, but those were related to the Meadow Creek realignment and the closure of Barn Road, which has been completed, so they're no longer relevant to the development of the property. So it seemed to make sense to go ahead and remove those. That is all I have for you. Mr. Steve Simonis is here, and Mr. Deep Patel, who is planning on developing the property, is here. They can answer any questions as well as myself. We do have this scheduled for public hearing next week. So if you have any questions that they can solve between now and then, it would be very helpful.
Mr. Chairman, are there draft revisions to the current proffers, or is it just based on the concept plan at this point?
There are draft revisions to the concept plan or to the proffers, including the concept plan change, and that is located in your packet for next week. So we do have
for
those.
next week?
Yes.
Okay.
For a public hearing.
Any further comments? Like to
Just
hear
say,
from
I'm
the
glad they
applicant.
weren't in this week's packet that I missed.
Do we need the applicant? I don't.
Steve, would you like to add anything?
Need to add anything?
I feel like I'm here, I should talk. I feel like I should say something. So, good evening, everybody. Steve Simonis with Balzer and Associates. Bree touched on most everything. Again, there's no way that we could come back and do a plan with all the changes that happened with Meadow Creek and Mr. Young's property coming out of that project that was originally approved. So we understood as we got into this that we'd have to come back, and we'll provide you a full presentation next week. But Mr. Patel, not Deep Patel, one of his other partners is here this evening that could answer any questions if you have them. Just one thing to add, we did have some follow-up conversation with VDOT as part of this. This is all included in your package of information and will be next week, I'm sure, with a staff report. But VDOT has given us some direction as far as what they'd like to see from a turn lane perspective coming off of Tyler Road and making a left onto Meadow Creek. Based on the traffic generation of this project and the existing traffic on Tyler, there will be a left turn that's needed. But there is enough space. There are 2 lanes right out there before you get to that intersection. So it's really going to be restriping. We won't have to do a lot of construction out on the road. But again, this is unfortunately a little bit of cleanup we just have to do, but we're excited about the project. 15, I guess, years later, we're finally starting to see some movement out at this intersection at this, at exit 109. I know the hospital's excited about having some food and gas options out there. So if you have any questions tonight, I'm happy to answer them. If not, we will see you next week.
Do you mind clarifying the future phase there at the top and the bottom?
Yep, yes, sir. So the whole property itself, is 9 acres. The Cavern LLC, and just so you all know, if you know where the Dixie Caverns exit is, there's a convenience store and a Witch right there. That's the same clients we're working with on this. So a very nice restaurant, well kept, well maintained. So they are going to purchase this portion of the property, the southern portion, south of Meadow Creek, from Mr. Woody, RWW, that owns the property right now. The upper portion will stay in that RWW 34, 36 LLC that Mr. Woody has. So what we wanted to do on this, as Bree mentioned, we're gonna ask for general conformance with the master plan versus substantial, which was what was shown before. What we didn't want to do is show another hotel or another office building that we don't know is happening. We know Mr. Woody has had conversations with fast food and hotels on this parcel. The lower parcel, based on existing topography as you come down through the site, for those of you that were out there this afternoon, you know, it drops off real steep here underneath the power lines and comes back up. So this parcel here would likely be accessed off of Barn Road solely. As you know, there's some medical office buildings on that road right now. So we would see that really probably go into a medical use at some point in the future. But we don't have those nailed down. So those would be future development sites, but they would be within the by right uses we've included here, and obviously not any of the ones we have specifically excluded in the proffer statement.
So the proffer station, you have excluded some uses. And
Yes, sir.
That would apply to both of these future phases?
Yes, sir. And those are the same uses we excluded back in the original rezoning in the First Amendment back in 2010.
Thank you for clarification. I have another question. Go ahead.
Mr. Simonis, is your signage going to fall within the current sign ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Now, would you address the little sliver of land that's north of the Young property? That's a part of this property too, that sort of
Finger.
semicircular.
It is, yes, sir. So originally what was rezoned, you know, the Young property was part of this, and Meadow Creek was going to basically outline something like this, kind of cut through it. So you'd have more property on the north and south side. When the Young property did not go into that, VDOT came back in and designed the new alignment for Meadow Creek. So it did just leave this kind of remnant leg sticking out there. There's no plan to develop that. We can't get setbacks off of that little section, so it'll just be open space.
Thank you. VDOT was able to create the same curve in Meadow Creek in a different location.
Right.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
And in the second item on our work session is request for a special use permit to rezone a 20-acre portion of 30.1 total acres from agriculture to planned unit development commercial, with proffered conditions to allow a planned mixed-use commercial development, and a request for a special use permit to allow a contractor service establishment with outdoor storage on a 20.7 acre portion of 30.1 total acres, and a request for a special use permit to allow for multifamily dwellings on a 20.7 acre portion of the 30.1 total acres. Mr. Cochran, please.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot going on with this request. Three requests. One request for a rezoning from the A1 agricultural district to the planned unit development commercial district. And to my knowledge, that is the first request that the county has received for the PUD-COM zoning district. So this is new for us. And it took a little while to get everything kind of sorted out with this request. We went through a lot of different zoning districts trying to figure out how the proposed uses would fit within our zoning ordinance, and we landed on this zoning district being the best fit for the uses. So we can just jump right on into the request. I guess also as well, there's two special use permits in association that would be contingent with the rezoning. The contractor service establishment with outdoor storage, as well as multifamily dwelling units. Here you can see the vicinity map of the property. The property is located on Prices Fork Road, which is just west of the town of Blacksburg, and it is located within the Prices Fork Village. The property itself is located between Cox's Driving Range and the new West Hill subdivision. Here you can see the 3 lots that are being rezoned. The front 2 lots are the lots that are actually getting developed. That rear lot is actually remaining A1 for agricultural uses or any potential future development. The front 2 lots are the lots that are receiving the rezoning as well as the special use permit requests. And here you can see the site plan, proposed site plan for the development. Here you have building number 1, which would likely be the location of the contractor service establishment. And behind it, you have a gravel contractor storage yard thing for equipment or materials. The structure over here, number 2, would be geared more towards specialty retail and or a garden center, and I believe even an event center. So all of the uses that have been proposed within the request are for the contractor service establishment to house Back to Nature Landscaping Company, the specialty retail store / garden center. You would have the event center. There would be an area dedicated in the rear of the property for a pick your own for I guess fruits and vegetables or flowers. There would also be office space available. In the rear here, there would be a mulch and stone yard. The multifamily residential aspect to it is kind of dependent on how the property and the business goes. If there's space available, they believe that on the second floor of the structures, they would offer a few multifamily residential units. There would also be a potential amphitheater and ice rink in the back area here. There is a courtyard here between the 2 uses. There would also be possible storage for other contractors potentially, or use the space as just general storage for possible tenants. That is the majority of the request. I'll leave any of the specifics or in relation to the operations to Mr. Simonis, or the applicants are also here as well. So are there any immediate questions that you may have for me?
Jude, can you speak to the multifamily dwellings on 20 acres? That kind of jumps out at you.
Yeah. So there's not planned any standalone multifamily dwelling units. Again, if there are any multifamily dwelling units included in the development, they will be likely on the second floor of the proposed structures, and likely they will be there'll be few. There will not be many units, and likely they'll be for workers' housing potentially. But I'll leave that more up to the applicant to speak on.
Okay.
Jude, and possibly Ms. Hopkins, is there a process by which we could disengage the multifamily dwellings in a separate section from this?
When you say disengage, I am assuming you are saying you could approve the other uses
Without the PUD.
without the multifamily?
Yes.
Yes, because it is a separate special use permit. So you have a rezoning for PUDCOM, and then you have a special use permit for the contractor's service establishment, which would be Mr. Ulmer's landscaping business Back to Nature. And then you would have the multifamily dwelling components as a separate special use permit. So when this comes to you, it will come to you as 3 public hearings. We will handle it all together, but you will need 3 separate motions, just like we had with the subdivision and the 2 separate motions.
Thank you. I do have concerns about the possible density and configuration of the housing.
Absolutely, and we'll have Mr. Simonis speak to that
Thank you.
tonight as well.
Thank you.
Since where it works is, I'd just like to say, I was kind of excited about the residential part. Instead of $650,000 townhouses that workers can't afford, this would be more reasonably priced rental units, for area people. So I was kind of excited about that. I just wanted to make sure that we wasn't talking about townhouses, individual duplexes and that kind of thing. But mixed use with living space up and commercial space down, I thought was kind of forward thinking.
I'm not sure that I'm opposed, although often I'm opposed to forward thinking. But I would simply like more control over the design.
And that is the other thing to remember too, because the multifamily units would be handled through a special use permit. That is not proffer related, that is condition related. So you can add conditions to those special use permits that apply to those uses only. It would not apply to the other uses that's allowed by right in the PUDCOM, but it would apply to the specific uses in the special use permit.
Do you have an estimate of how many acres are the grow, pick your own and accessory use area?
I'll leave that up to the applicant.
Oh, okay. It looks like a pretty good chunk, and I just wondered how, if that's going to be inviting, like, to the neighbors that's to the left, how that's going to be handled. But that part of it, I don't think there's anything similar to that in that area, so it looks like it would be a great opportunity for the community there.
So I have a question.
Okay.
First of all, I think it's a very exciting, ambitious, wonderful, creative idea for Price's Fork area. So I do commend them for that. My concern is traffic and entrances, and we all know how great that D-about is, that BDOT said was okay. So, and this is not new. The way I understand it right now is that the Back to Nature trucks and equipment would be using the same entrance, one entrance, that you potentially have food and ice cream and activities and a courtyard. And I just think that's a very busy spot. I get it, it's across from Brunswick Lane, so that helps. But I'm concerned that it's commercial vehicles that'll be using the same entrance as families that are coming to do pick your own. So
there are actually two entrances. You have the main entrance that's located across from Brunswick Drive. That will be
Right.
used primarily by customers visiting the site. And then there's a drive further east that will be mainly used for the Back to Nature business, as well as the mulch yard in the back. And then it also does loop around. So potentially, if there are being trucks or deliveries to the specialty retail store, they could, venture around the rear of the property to load or unload, potentially.
So that's been, we can make that be that way. I don't want the big, I know what Thomas Lane is and Back to Nature, and I'm watching them pull out every morning, and they're busy, and they're going all day long, maybe not 7 days a week, but 6 days a week for sure. They're working hard. I just am very concerned that we would limit make the entrance be if it's a commercial entrance, is that one, and then the other entrance is the main entrance for other vehicles.
Right. And I'll let Steve talk a little bit more about the specifics of the VDOT requirements for ingress and egress to the site.
Okay.
Any other questions from me? If not, I'll pass it over to Mr. Simonis.
Any other questions?
You guys have already covered it, the SUP piece, that piece, yep.
I do have a comment too to think about where you grow your own is, if that's going to be all by the community, or if they're going to be growing things like pumpkins, and then all of a sudden you have a big traffic jam of people trying to turn in there to get pumpkins, or have a field day out there. Because I know that on Route 8 near Sinkland, there's often a traffic jam there when it's the busiest time of the year. So that's something to think about too, as far as the entrance and the accessibility area.
All right, Steve?
So this is, good evening again, Steve Simonis with Balzer. This is an exciting project, so I'm happy you all, from the get-go, see this as kind of a creative way to bring some neighborhood, community commercial to Price's Fork. As Jude mentioned, we went through and we talked about it on site, at least 3 meetings with staff to try to figure out how best to accomplish this within the zoning configurations the county has in their ordinances. You know, we looked at, well, let's look at community business, but that didn't allow some uses. We looked at several different options, and where we landed was this PUDCOM with a couple of special use permits. I've got with me tonight James Ulmer and Scott Sink, both of which I think it would be helpful for you all to hear from tonight. I know this isn't our big presentation public hearing, but I think it's important for you all to see the vision. What we try to do at Balzer is we try to provide you these nice, pretty pictures. This is about as bland of a picture I think I've ever presented to you all, because it can't show what this can be. We just can't put that onto a drawing. So if you look through the packets that we submitted with the application, we had a lot of images. We probably more so than we normally provide you. And that's the inspirational images that Scott and James provided to us to say, this is the vision we see. So I'd like for them to maybe just explain the project a little bit to you all first, if you'll give us that allowance, and then I'll kind of come back in and touch through some of the site plan and engineering pieces of it, the traffic, the multifamily.
Do you want us to pull up the?
Oh, to pull up the thing I asked you to load first. That'd be great. And while Bree's pulling up just our drawings, and these are the drawings that we had in the application, but I thought it would be helpful for everybody to see. Again, as Jude mentioned, it's 30 acres, but only the front 20 is what we're looking at. Yep. So the back 20 are staying ag. Anything that we do back there would be by right within the ag district. So when we started looking at this, obviously, as Jude mentioned, Back to Nature is on, and Ms. Sharp Robinson, you brought it up, it's on Thomas Lane right now. Yes, sir. Thank you. So they're looking for, obviously, a new home. They're a growing business, and as this popped up, and James can kind of explain this, he and Scott know each other. They've been looking at other opportunities, especially Scott, around the county to do what he'd like to do out here. So when this 30 acres looked like it was available, they had the conversations with the property owner, and that's where we've gotten to tonight. So James and Scott, would you all like to come on up?
Hello, everyone. I'm James Ulmer with Back to Nature Landscaping. Are we able to go through the pictures on this? Or
I'll touch through them here.
okay. I think I stood in front of you guys 8 years ago when we moved on to Thomas Lane. We were kind of just starting out, getting our feet wet, and over the last 8 to 10 years, we've grown pretty rapidly, became pretty involved in the community, and over the last 3 years, I've been on the search for a different location, and kind of fallen down on a few of them, and talking to Steve Graham, the property owner, about the vision I had on here. He was very happy to hear that versus a residential development, which seems to be the theme on Price's Fork recently. So first and foremost, we're moving Back to Nature over to this location. We already have a mulch and stone yard to service our residential and commercial clients, along with an on-site garden center. We currently do not offer any of that to the public, so we would like to expand that area, since we would already have to put that on site and offer that to the public as far as retail, mulch and stone yard, and a retail garden center, and really create a one-stop shop for our clients, whether they want to use us, Back to Nature, or purchase their own products to install themselves. We would also have a design center on site that they can, hire Back to Nature to install their project, or just get a design from the design center and then be able to shop on site to purchase all of their landscape products. So it'd be really a one-stop shop for those types of clients. And my brother, my younger brother, owns Overlook Farms and Produce in Mount Crawford Bridgewater exit. So just up 81, and he's got a rather large location that he does a lot of pick your own produce. He's got a greenhouse there, a bakery. Some of you guys might have seen it. I encourage you to visit it. I think that's a good representation of what we're trying to build there. So with that in mind, Scott Sink and I have known each other for quite a while, and we're looking to partner, and the piece of the pie that he's bringing into this would be a lot of that farmer's market type feel. We've also talked about, other stuff out there like ice cream, a coffee shop. So I'll let Scott kind of touch on the other piece of this. As you can see, Back to Nature doesn't need 30 acres, and it's on a piece of prime real estate. So we're it's important to us to not hodgepodge this. It may sound kind of hodgepodgey as you hear all the uses, but it's important for us to make sure it fits the community feel and works together on site. So I'll let Scott touch on the other piece of this.
Thank you, James. Good evening. Thank you all for hearing this tonight. Scott Sink, owner of Heathwood Market and also a partner in Rhino Ridge Produce. Heathwood Market's been in business here in the county since 2009. I've been raising produce in the county since 2000, and we started Rhino Ridge Produce. There on the side of Route 8, we have the honor stand as you go into Floyd there. And we've been looking for a place that we could build more of a farmer's market type concept and have an event center built in with that. And we actually had talked with Steve a couple years ago about growing some produce on his location there, kind of how karma in life works. It didn't work out then. James ended up working out a deal with Steve, and I ended up being one of his first phone calls after that happened. And I told him, well, he'd been one of mine because I was in the same boat. I didn't need all that, and was trying to think how we combine landscaping, nursery plants, as well as the rustic type view that we have. A lot of the different uses that we're having, that's one thing that staff encouraged us as we went through the process, is to think for the next 20, 30 years, all the stuff that we could possibly put in there that would still fit our general theme. And so, don't get maybe lost in the weeds with a lot of the different things we're looking at. There is a plan with how all of it fits together. That's one thing that both of us with our businesses at least pride ourselves in, is that everything is nice, neat, looks good, has the same theme. If you see James trucks, all of his themes are down the road. That's what we try to do with our catering business, and that's the same type concept that we would bring to this place here. One thing I would like to touch on is like the ice rink. That you think maybe commercial when you hear that. What I envision with that is more of I do a lot with Virginia Farm Bureau, and so we own the state fairgrounds there outside of Richmond. Well, we was able to bring in during the Christmas light show an outdoor ice rink that we put up. Well, we've sold Christmas trees in this area for now 10 plus years. So that's more what we're looking at is, do we use one of the greenhouses that we have there then to put an indoor ice rink to where then you're kind of creating that Christmas feel as you get into that type of year. That's why we're throwing a lot of different things and trying to get that included with this process as we go.
So, would you guys just mind hanging? Okay.
Your bodyguards.
Yep. So, and I'm glad both these guys kind of mentioned the James's mention of the hodgepodge and Scott mentioning that this is all supposed to be cohesive. What you don't see is you don't see multiple buildings out here. So I want to address kind of as we go some of the questions you all brought up. The grow and pick your own area here in the back, it's probably about 5 of that 20 acres. I'm just guessing by the size here on the piece of paper. So we could have some of the accessory uses. Scott mentioned this ice rink. We asked Bree and Jude and Justin, what do we do if we want to have, a couple guys on a guitar on a Saturday afternoon out there and have a little amphitheater? What do we do if we want to have an ice rink? We don't have an ice rink at Montgomery County, during those holiday times like Elmwood Park and Roanoke, or downtown. So, it was, well, put them in there and let's talk through them and see how they would fit as a quote accessory use, which would be allowed within that PUDCOM, with staff's okay, administrative okay. So some of those could be in this area, but as Scott said, maybe in the event center, you bring that seasonal ice rink inside. It's a lot of different opportunities with that. But as you can see, the two buildings here, the square footages that we've provided, 25,000 square feet on this footprint, and about the same 34,000 on the kind of the long L here. And what that gives us is the opportunity for, an office rental or some additional retail space if you've got a couple of, small retail shops that want to go in back in the back area here. And you'll see this courtyard in between, and I'll show you some images here in a few minutes. The most important thing to these two guys in the design was that it truly feels as a community of businesses, not back to nature, and then you've got this, and then you've got that it all flows, that you've got the ability for customers to walk back and forth. If people are shopping at Scott's Place, the kids could be outside in this courtyard area. It's safe, it's contained. So think about some of the other places you've been. Eastern Divide Brewery, we brought up the outdoor space they have there. It's safe, it's contained. If the kids want to throw a cornhole or just run around with the dog, there's places to do that. So we have tried to look at how all that can function together and still stay, as we've said a couple of times now, cohesive to the overall theme of the development. We looked at the parking. We do have parking shown that would kind of go in phase one, some future areas back here in this area if we do need additional parking. The event center space, so that could be a wedding reception. That's going to be one of those items that you're not likely going to see used during the weekday. That would be more of a weekend or evening event. That could be upstairs in this building here. It could be downstairs in a basement, kind of a second, lower floor. Those of you that were out on site saw the grade change that we have out there. So both of these buildings are set up where they would have that basement condition. So for James's building here, the back to nature, the sales office, retail center for him would be up in this front part. And this lower section, this parking and storage yard back here would be on that lower level. So you'd kind of drop down into a basement level garage base here, and all that's hidden from Price's Fork Road. So you don't have that visibility, looking into the storage yard and looking into the equipment. So he'd have employees parked back here as well as their equipment. The mulch and stone yard, again, is back in the back of the project, downgrade. So a couple other things I want to touch on just from the questions that were brought up. So the multifamily itself, and thank you, Mr. Rice, for your comments, because that's exactly what we're thinking about. This isn't a purpose-built student housing project out here. We don't have any standalone apartment buildings. This would be, and I say would be, not will be, but would be if it goes in. Would be on the second floor of these buildings. So we want to maintain the commercial uses on the ground floor. And during our discussions, James said, well, could we get some how do we get some residential on here? So again, with the PUDCOM, it sets some different parameters and standards if you want to have residential, similar to a PUD res. That's more residential with a little bit of commercial allowances. This is commercial with a little bit of residential allowance. So we can't do a whole lot of it anyway, just by the way the code reads. So our thoughts would be, you could have some accessory apartments on the upper floor that could be, a professor or a young family, or either one of these folks' employees could live there. It could be seasonal work, somebody working at construction at tech that's there for 9-12 months for a project and leave. So it's just it's another revenue stream for these guys. It's another housing option on that end of the county, adjacent to Blacksburg, where again, prices are on the higher end anyway. So it could be, some small efficiency units. So it's nothing, we don't know the exact number of what it is. We haven't designed, those units out yet. We did include in our I think we had to include some rough ideas for our traffic analysis, or for our trip generation and our water and sewer analysis. So we have those in the application. But it would be a small number if those are even done.
And Steve, I may just interject a little bit. On paper, it says 20 acres for multifamily dwelling. That's what scares me.
Right.
So I don't know, it's something you can do or something we do, but somewhere it needs to be limited to where it doesn't look like 20 acres of multifamily, because that's going to scare.
If there's a way we can, we'll do whatever, staff thinks we can, if we can reword that or specify within the SUP application or narrative that it's limited to.
I think we can definitely address it through the narrative. We cannot address it in the legal ad because the special use permit has to apply to that property. So
Right.
it has to apply to the 20 acres. And that's what you're reading from is the legal ad. We can definitely clarify it in the narrative. The other option is if we know the maximum density that you may want, we can always add a condition that you shall not have more than X number of units. On the SUP, we can add that condition.
Okay.
So that would be something else we can talk about before we actually get to the public hearing next week.
We wanted to use the word accessory apartment, but the definition of accessory apartment doesn't work with this. That's more of if you've got a garage apartment, I believe is the way the county ordinance reads. Bree.
Correct. So we tried to go, because accessory apartment is allowed by right, but the way the ordinance reads, they would only be allowed, I believe, 2 of those per structure. So that would be a maximum of 4. And I know when we were talking about maybe a few more than that. But we can definitely talk about that number and come up with that to narrow it down to help.
Okay. A couple other items just to touch on. Ms. Simpkins, somebody asked about traffic. Andrea? The one who lives right across, yeah. So traffic, as you all know, you live out there, traffic on Price's Fork is pretty heavy. I believe with all 3 projects that are currently, that have just been recently either constructed or under construction, the Preserve, North Star Church, and West Hill, traffic studies were done on all 3 of those. We went through and did a traffic analysis on this and submitted that information along with our application to VDOT. So what we looked at was basically turn lane analysis. We don't trip any thresholds for intersections or signals or roundabouts or anything like that, but we do trip thresholds for turn lanes. There's enough traffic on Price's Fork Road today as it stands that it would be hard to put anything in there with any sort of density and not require it, because as you're looking, especially at a left turn lane, heading towards Blacksburg, there's so much traffic in the PM coming out of Blacksburg. The numbers just don't work based on VDOT standards as far as how long it takes you to make that left-hand turn. So we will be required to build some left-hand turn lane into our main access, which is the center access here across from Brunswick. We would also have to have a right turn and taper coming into that entrance, and a right taper coming into this easternmost entrance, which is a right in, right out. And I think, Ms. Simpkins, to your question, I think it was maybe you asking as far as just traffic flow getting in and out. VDOT does have standards as far as how far the spacing is required to be based on the classification of the road. So the classification of Price's Fork requires more spacing than we have in frontage to allow 2 full access intersections. So we have the one main one, which is across from Brunswick, which again, as you all know, you want those intersections across from one another and not offset. But we do have the correct amount of spacing between this access point and our right in, right out. So the good part about this, to Ms. Simpkins' concern, is, or maybe Ms. Sharp Robinson, I apologize, but the majority of James's crews that'll be coming from the Blacksburg area or off of 460 are going to be coming westbound. Especially in the afternoon. So that's going to be that easy right in for them and not getting into conflict with anything in the front here. In the mornings when their trucks are leaving, obviously if they're going towards Radford, they could use this right out. If they're going back out towards 460 in Blacksburg, they're going to have to use the main entrance to make the left turn. So you do have heavier traffic, obviously, going towards Blacksburg in the morning. But again, that's backing traffic up in their own property and not out on the Prices Fork Road. And when your crews leave they're probably out 7:30 most mornings. While you have that heavy traffic on Prices Fork, you don't have heavy traffic using the businesses here on site at that point. So you're not cross traffic, cross contaminating a lot of commercial traffic in the morning, where those folks would be primarily using this main entrance. Those folks being James's folks. At the same times you would have people in Scott's business. The second piece of that is from a phasing perspective, and we talk about this in the application as well. The intent would be building 1 to be constructed first, and the parking and the drive aisles that would be necessary for that. And Scott could start off running the first piece of what he wants to do out there, out of one of the legs here of this L-shaped building. As that business continues to grow, and maybe it's really quick and we're moving right into phase 2. So we haven't set any time limits on how long phase 1 and phase 2 will be spaced out. But that is the idea. We could get our feet wet, let Scott get his feet wet out here as far as what we want to do, get the courtyard space worked in, and then as the market demands, phase 2 could come online at that point. I'm going to try to stop talking about that stuff. The images I'm going to show you all here, we're going to give you next week some bigger images. We'll pare these down a little bit. These are the ones that were included in the application text. So you have these. And I don't know, James or Scott, if you guys want to speak to these, or if we can just go through them. Do you want to touch them?
So yeah, this is just some places Scott and I have visited and kind of envisioned the look and feel of the property. But this was a landscape company I visited, so this middle picture would be the look of that. The garage bays that Back to Nature would be using, again, out of sight from the courtyard, out of sight from the Prices Fork Road area. This is a design center on the left side of a landscape company. This is actually my brother's place, Overlook Farms and Produce in Mount Crawford. But they have a deli, bakery, as well as an open area that they sell produce, canned goods. This is another spot, Valley Pike Farmers Market in Weir's Cave, again, just right up 81. These are just some images of some greenhouse garden centers. Again, some more greenhouse garden centers. There's, kind of the idea of the courtyard outdoor area for eating. These are some images that Scott and I envision for the farmers market. Again, a lot of produce, ready-to-made food. There's like some beer, wine tasting at the Valley Pike location here. Again, a deli, some more produce, canned goods. And, if we erect some greenhouses, some nice greenhouses on the site, we can have a lot of multi-uses for those, a lot of seasonal stuff. We could put an ice rink in there. You could put Christmas trees in there. You could put pumpkins in there. You could even have some events in there. These are some pictures of places they've, kind of moved everything off to the side. You utilize a lot of the product in the greenhouse for staging for those events. Inside the greenhouse is a potential. This is a picture of in downtown Bridgewater. They have a pop-up ice skate rink that they do during the winter. And they take it down and do a farmer's market on the concrete slab this time of year. This is just some images of an amphitheater and outdoor kids play space. And then again, just some pictures of potential pick your own strawberries, pumpkins. So hopefully that kind of, you can envision what we're trying to put on paper with those a little better.
Yeah, so I think that was important, and Bree and Jude and Justin, staff said it's really important on this project to make sure everybody understands what our vision is, because again, it's hard for me to put that on paper, with everything that's possible out there. We think it's a really neat concept. It's something that we think would be extremely well received, and Price's Fork. We've got some other pieces that we can touch on tonight. We've looked at water and sewer. We're working on some sewer options right now that we touched on at the site visit this afternoon. We've talked about traffic. We've got stormwater management areas proposed on the site, and we can give you all that information next week, or we can discuss it this evening. I hate to ruin my whole presentation for next week this evening. But we are excited about it. James and Scott have both had conversations with several of the neighbors in the area already. We met with Supervisor Grafsky last week, I believe, to kind of introduce him to the project on site. So we've got a lot of good responses so far. We know it's going to be a little bit different. There's nothing like this out in Price's Fork, but quite honestly, there's not a whole lot like this in the county. And what I told the folks that were out there on site today, what was really exciting to these guys is that we got so much support and help from staff early on to see that we could possibly make this happen on one project area in the county and not have to split these up, or James not have to go into one of the two towns, but keep this project, keep this, the tax revenue, everything else as a really nice agriculturally themed project within the county boundaries, and not have to split it up into the two towns. So we're excited to be in front of you, and we'd be happy to answer any other questions tonight, or if there are any other thoughts that you'd like us to touch on next week. Happy to answer what we can.
Did any of those drawings include residential in them? I don't think.
No,
they
and
don't. Okay.
it states that in the application that the only residential we would have would be on the second floor of one of these buildings.
Right, but the drawings that we just saw, the beautiful,
idea, the
like
pictures.
nobody there is doing that.
No,
Okay.
Well, I don't know in any of them. We're not showing any of the residential.
Right, okay, that's what I was
Yep,
thinking.
thank you.
Excuse me. A couple of thoughts. You're going to have an interesting aesthetic to deal with. You've got a 120-yard long structure here in Building 1.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be interested to see those elevations. And then with the mulch and gravel and stone yard in the back, has there been any thought on that eastern boundary to try to hide it a little bit?
We do have a buffer yard that's required, and Bree mentioned that, I think, on your last application. So we do have a buffer yard. I think it's a type 4. It's the heaviest one. It's the biggest we can, we're required to have.
It is a type 4.
Yeah, so a type 4 buffer. So there'll be extensive landscaping along that side, and we do have that pulled over. It's a 20-foot landscape buffer, and then we have a road, then we've got probably another 20 feet before you get to the yard itself.
Okay.
And again, if you get a chance to go out there, Mr. Foster, you can drive out in the second entrance into a field, but you can see as you go back into the property, it drops off pretty steep from the neighbor to the right. And James did have a meeting with that gentleman, I believe last week, to explain
They
the
might
project.
enjoy the stormwater management.
Mm-hmm.
You guys helping them out. I have a question for us. There's going to be overnight storage of equipment. Do we need to write that in somehow?
So that is included with the contractor's service establishment with outdoor storage. So that's part of that special use permit. And like I said, with the multifamily dwellings, we can attach conditions to that as well.
The light, I was wondering about the lighting for the parking. Yes, there has to be, will there be lighting because the events would occur at night as well?
So lighting on this, and this is for two reasons. One, just because it's Price's Fork, it's one of our village areas, but secondly, because of our neighbors in Sterling Manor. Any lighting we do out there will be at a residential scale. So we're not anticipating having a 40-foot Cobra head parking lot
Okay.
light like Walmart. This would all be residential in scale, short, enough to provide security in the evenings. A lot of it will probably be lit through the courtyard around the building itself, but there would be some.
That's different though,
Yeah,
right? I got you.
right.
Okay, thank you.
And would certainly meet dark sky, everything directed down, no up lighting, unless it was accent lighting around some landscaping or the face of the buildings.
Okay.
I have one comment. So the neighbor on the right, it looks like on the aerial view that's in color, it looks like could be a farm operation. Like it looks like maybe they've unrolled hay bales or something. I wondered about the fencing issue for that side. I know you have a buffer there, but I don't know if there's a fence already there or you maybe have a conversation with that neighbor about the fencing and who's responsible for keeping animals in or out. So we had that discussion earlier, and I know it seems to be a point of contention for those owners that have livestock.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's got livestock or not, James.
He
or if
currently doesn't. There is there, and we would maintain it together, just like you would any co-shared boundary fence. But there is a woven wire fence currently there right now.
So if you see the color picture, you'll see where, I don't know how old it is, but it does seem like it has, well, the one I see on there that we were provided, it looks like there's more activity there. So just keep that in mind on your submittals. Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Motion to come out of work? Motion and second to come out of work session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Seeing nothing with old business or new business, we will move to liaison reports. And first up would be the Board of Supervisors. Mr. King, do you have anything for us this evening?
Thank you for allowing me up here. We start a new fiscal year this month. So hopefully a few things that Bree asked for, she got. And as far as the Auburn Park, they're moving forward with it. They've been grading out there. So hopefully by maybe the middle of December, it'll be finished, hopefully, or maybe the end. And we're almost finished with the water project out on Meadow Creek. Hopefully it'll be done probably middle of next month. So that's about all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Blacksburg Planning Commission, Ms.
Yep.
Robbins.
So if I understand it correctly, and Bree and Justin or Jude, anybody can help me, they met and they voted to approve small lot housing designation, which means a house can be built on a really tiny lot. And I figure that's coming our way. And it's worth looking at, guys. I didn't write down the numbers, but I'm just going to say it's part of my reason for concern for this project as well, right? If we don't know what it's going to be with no stipulations, they could do the same thing. And it is to create affordable housing, but they are looking at all of Blacksburg and cutting it up. How big is a lot now? Like, it's only 3 feet between houses. Like 3 feet from here to you. My house is your house, right? You know, mi casa, su casa. So, but that was the big news. So we're thinking about. It's progressive. I mean, I got it from Blacksburg's perspective. It was a progressive way to create affordable housing for people, so I totally understand that. But they're tiny places,
Seems
lots
like I
of
read in the
them.
paper too that town council approved the rezoning on the Blacksburg old high school center,
Right.
and the average price is for townhouses $650,000 for townhouses. Ain't that amazing? Affordable.
That's it.
Thank you, ma'am. Chrisburg Planning, I don't believe they've had a meeting yet. Radford Planning, Ms. Simpkins,
They didn't have a meeting?
okay. And Mr. Miller with the tourism. And Mr. Workman,
No meeting?
how about that? And planning director's report.
Okay, well, I can't let you go without a report, so here we go. Mr. King stated we have started fiscal year 2025. I'm very thankful for fiscal year 2025 because I was awarded 2 new positions in the budget, one for a zoning compliance officer and one for a transportation planner. Those ads are out. We have received some applications. We will be doing some interviews in the next couple weeks, and then we will see how that goes. If we do not have any candidates that meet the requirements, then we will re-advertise and continue the hunt. It is a hard job market, not just for us, but statewide. All planning departments are having the same issues we have with getting applicants. So also in the 2025 budget, I would like to announce that I have now an assistant planning director for the Department of Planning and GIS, and that is Justin Sanders. He was reclassified. That is very exciting for me. He has done a wonderful job. I do not know what I would have done without him throughout this whole year when I've decided to be very clumsy and injure myself twice. He has ran the department flawlessly, and so it's really exciting for me to announce that. We are continuing to plug through smart scale applications, and we are continuing to work on those. I feel like every time I turn around, we're changing something, and then I start to panic because it's too late to be changing things, but we will get there. The deadline is July 31st, so we just have a few more weeks, but VDOT is diligently working. We have spent probably a total of 8 to 10 hours in the last 2 weeks on phone calls just related to smart scale on Zooms. So we are busy with that. We are also continuing to go through the design plans for the Prices Fork Peppers Ferry Road intersection improvements. And we have spent likewise probably another 4 hours on that project in the last week, just looking at design plans and talking through it. But a large part of our work has been for the comprehensive plan. We are very excited about the way Montgomery Matters has been kicking off. We did have another stakeholders meeting on July 1st. Lots of people attended that. We got a lot of good feedback. We had 4 sessions, government agencies. We talked to historic cultural resources, education, and I'm leaving one off. Housing. I was in that one. I should not have left that one off. But so we had 4 sessions on the first. We got a lot more feedback that has gone back with our consultant. We also took our consultants to all the villages in the county, so they were able to visit that day as well, and that helps out a lot. We stopped and got a lot of pictures, so that's very exciting. The survey, of course, has launched. As of last week, we had around 450 surveys answered. We think that is going to be a lot more when we get our update towards the end of this week because it had not went out to employees yet. So we're anticipating to get a boost there. Plus Parks and Rec have been so kind to share it with their mailing list, and so that went out to over 28,000 people in the county. So we're really excited, and we really do appreciate the cooperation that the other departments have given us. Public information have had our backs the whole way through, and we just can't sing their praises enough. With that said, we have some upcoming events. So tomorrow morning, Justin and I will be at the Montgomery County Chamber Eggs and Issues events. We will be joined by the town of Blacksburg and the town of Christiansburg, and we will discuss a comprehensive planning session. So we're going to go over what is comprehensive planning and then what each of the jurisdictions have going on as it relates to their comprehensive plan. So that is exciting. And then Justin fell on the sword for me this coming Saturday, and he will be at the Blacksburg Farmers Market from 8 to 2 to be out there getting out some information. And then he is leaving there and going to the Mount Tabor Fish Fry from 4 to 7. They've invited us to both of those locations. So I'm thankful to have him. He's filling his assistant director duties well already. In my absence, I am not available this Saturday, so he is taking that on with the help of staff. Shelley and Amanda have both volunteered to go and assist him. So it's been a group effort and it is going very, very well. So that is all I have on that point, but I did want to celebrate something. And I wanted to announce Justin passed his AICP exam recently, and he is now a certified he is an American Institute of Certified Planners. He is the first one we have had since 2012 in our department, or 2013 when Mr. Sandy left in our department. So we are very excited. It was a lot of studying. It was a lot of hard work. So I just want to congratulate him on a job well done. Here in the public meeting and let you all know that he's putting in a lot of work and a lot of effort, and I'm very proud of him. So, and I'll end my report there on a happy note.
Okay, let me ask a question.
Yes.
It might help us all, or some. If we're still struggling with the iPad, where would we go for help?
So if you're struggling with the iPad,
Several times tonight, they referenced in our application packet colors, and I couldn't find it in my packet. So
if you're still struggling, if you'll reach out to Amanda, and she can get you scheduled to meet with any member of staff. Also, our IT staff can help, but any member of our planning staff can help you because we are well versed in it. We have been trained on it for board docs for the Board of Supervisors. But if you'll reach out to us, we'll be glad to help you. Just schedule a time that you can come in, and we'll just sit down and go through it, see what you need help with and how to get it pulled up and that type of thing. We can also talk about, I don't want to make an alternative to board docs, but we can also still put the packet into Dropbox probably for you if you seem to find that a little easier, especially when you're reviewing things, because it's all kind of together.
Like during the meeting when we're here, and you try to go from one to another, then you lose it, and then you have to.
Yes, I understand.
You have to sign back in, and then you're trying to listen.
I understand. Yes.
So it's a little
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
Please do reach out. Yes. Mr. Miller is still waiting on broadband to hit his area, so we are
As am
trying
I.
to trudge through it.
That's why I was gonna tell the guy from the cell tower, he's welcome to put a tower in my
He's
backyard
welcome to come to your
anytime he
property.
wants.
I have said that at my house too. I do not have, I use US Cellular hotspot to get to my internet, so.
You're lucky.
There you go.
Okay, so motion to adjourn?
Before we do that, I just had a quick question. Maybe this is for Justin. Do you have an update on the upcoming APA conference? Is it's right around the corner, right?
It is right around the corner. So the APA Virginia Conference this year will be held in Williamsburg. I am on the conference planning committee. That information is available on the APA Virginia website if you are interested in attending. There is a planning commissioner's rate. Unfortunately, just due to the distance this year, the county is not able to provide travel accommodations for staff, for planning commission members. But there is a full slate of mobile tours, some really good sessions. We're focusing a lot this year at the conference on resiliency planning, particularly since we're going to be on the coast, talking about resiliency due to sea level rise, rise of water levels on the James. We are at this point, I believe, at about 450 attendees that are registered, so it's shaping up to be one of our largest conferences that we've had in the past several years.
We could probably cover registration, but we could not cover the accommodations in the current budget. That has not been done. No.
We had mentioned it to you, I guess it's been several meetings ago, and we had just left it to you all to let us know if you wanted to attend. If you are still interested, please reach out to staff this week, just because, again, the conference is going to be starting next Sunday and runs through the following Wednesday. That's the 21st, I believe, through the 24th.
Yes, and we did get some additional training money in this budget, but I also have 2 new people coming on. And so they're going to have to get certifications. Memberships increased for several of us this year. So we're still trying to navigate through that to make sure I can get staff where they need to be to keep up certifications.
Sorry.
My workout tonight. So next year we'll be in Portsmouth, and then the following year we're in Northern Virginia. So the APA board rotates the conference around to the different regions. Last year we were in Roanoke. We don't anticipate being back in Roanoke until probably at least 2028 at this point.
Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. We are adjourned.